welcome into Soccer Today. Sarah Pararia joined by Albert Vartanian and Michael Singh. No James Sharman this week as he is on holiday, the lucky guy. But we're here covering all of the Premier League this weekend. There's a ton of games to get to. We'll also touch on the FA Cup because there are several teams that are competing in that this weekend. But up first, gentlemen, we have Brentford and Leicester. Big match here for both sides. Here we have Brentford in 8th place, Leicester in 16th, and the billion-dollar question has to be, will Leicester be relegated this season? Albert, you mentioned this earlier this year, thinking that they might be one of the teams to go down.
Yeah, and it was kind of crazy saying at the time. I knew they would struggle. I don't want to say that I knew that there's a chance that they go down.
You knew.
But, no, but well, when you release your best center back in Wesley Fofana, they send him over to Chelsea. When you lose your top keeper in Kasper Schmeichel, you're going to struggle. And if you don't replace them, it's going to be an issue, right? And we see it this season, second worst home record in the league, 12 points from a possible 13. They concede almost the most amount of goals in the Premier League. So from now until the end of the season, there's some tough fixtures, and nothing's really changed throughout the season. There hasn't been a run of good, consistent form. So will they be relegated? I don't know. There's about 8 teams involved in this relegation battle. But I will say I think they might be fighting till the end.
That's what I was going to say. Like, we can literally go through until 12th in the table here. Crystal Palace, that they're all within at least a really serious discussion of potentially going down and getting relegated here. It's the first time actually since I think 2011 where you can have this conversation about these many teams this late into the season where they're all within reaching distance of relegation. And Leicester City right now, they're not showing too much confidence, and we know what's happening with them financially. We know about their club's financial issues. They might be hurt more so than any other team if they were going to be the team that goes down this season. And
it's, you look at those teams and you can name maybe 4 or 5 that are quote unquote too good to go down. But one of those teams, maybe multiple, 2 of those teams are going to go down. I still think Southampton and Bournemouth are probably locked into going down. The third one's going to be up in the air. But for Leicester City, it's such a poor season. You have such good players on that side. Harvey Barnes, James Maddison. I know Vardy's coming off the bench, but he's impactful. Patson Daka, Kelechi Iheanacho. So many players on the team are very good players, but they just can't put together a run of good form.
Yeah, no kidding. And they're also out from Wout Faes, is out with a red card
That's
from
huge.
the last match. Tielemans out, Justin's out, Bertrand's out. They have so many players that aren't eligible for this match, and they've lost their last 5 matches playing against a Brentford side that we know has been spectacular this season. Let's give some love to Brentford, and specifically, guys, Ivan Toney called up to Gareth Southgate's England squad. I don't think any of us were expecting this.
No, because of everything that's going on off the field, right? But I think Southgate came out and says that he doesn't want to prejudge Ivan Toney because nothing's actually been finalized or come down. And of course, we're referring to sort of the betting scandals that's happening with him. But yeah, a big surprise that Ivan Toney has, dropped out there, been called up to England. And for Southgate, like, you do have to wonder, you bring in Ivan Toney now, is this sort of a play long term? Because we know he's gonna be facing a suspension, right? Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't know. That's the thing. No one knows. I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but I'm not that surprised he got called up. I mean, you take Harry Kane out of the equation in terms of English strikers. He's the best English striker at the moment. Tammy Abrams not having the greatest season with Roma, not similar to what he had last season. Callum Wilson, he's kind of hit and miss. So I think it's him and Harry Kane at the top two. I mean, it's just. It's a great achievement, but is Toney going to actually see some pitch time behind Kane? Hopefully he does.
It's a Tottenham conundrum.
It's always, hey, come over to Tottenham. I'd love that. If Kane's leaving, I'd take Toney in a heartbeat.
All right, guys, well, going into this match, we know Leicester has a lot to play for, obviously being just above relegation. But Brentford, Mikey, you and I have spoken about this, but their schedule is one of the toughest left in the Prem.
Yeah.
They have to play all the big teams. When they're going up against a Leicester side at home, how important is it that they win this match knowing what lies ahead?
Yeah, huge. And they're unbeaten in 9 home games, right? And one of the main things to try and stay in the Premier League is that you want to make your home a fortress. You want to win these home games. Leicester is definitely not doing that, and on the road as well. But Brentford are, and they're completely in form, no serious injuries. There's no reason for Brentford to to be on the losing end of this game. I think this is a straightforward Brentford win, honestly.
Yeah, and I don't think they will, especially with Thomas Frank at the helm. He's got this team going so well right now, and they know they have aspirations. They have something in sight that they're so close to doing, and they've been tested a number of times so far this season. They really haven't let up too much, so I do like Brentford.
Everyone was expecting a huge drop-off after Eriksson left, right? It never happened. They got better.
Yeah.
They got better.
Yeah, Albert, actually, you have a bet for this game, which actually, I mean, I saw the odds. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, almost even money for Brentford. Like I said, unbeaten in 9 home games. Since the World Cup, Leicester City have lost 8 games, which is the most with Southampton. I just don't trust Leicester City here. And if you can get Brentford at close to even money, it's a no-brainer for me. It's probably my best bet of the weekend.
Mikey, you agree?
You can't
It's a
argue
great
with
bet.
it, right? And again, Leicester City, like James Maddison is their guy, right? I know I'm going in a little bit of different direction right now, but I wonder what happens to James Maddison if Leicester City do go down. That club's going to be stripped apart. They have to find a way to get some points here down the stretch.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, well, we're starting off with a relatively easy bet and match, but up next we'll be talking Spurs and Southampton, and knowing Tottenham, things are never going to be easy. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the soccer show as we head to St. Mary's Stadium, where bottom of the table Southampton welcome 4th place Tottenham Hotspur. We know how Albert Vardanian here feels about Spurs as of late. Knocked out of the UCL to Milan, knocked out of the FA Cup to Sheffield, lost to Wolves 2 weeks ago. It has been a tough time to be a Spurs fan, Albert. Is Conte staying with Spurs next season? That is the billion-dollar question.
You guys ask me this question all the time.
Every week.
I don't think so. I don't know what the answer is, but I will say this. If they finish in the top 4 based on what's happened, you can categorize it as a successful season. And if he does that and somehow they decide to keep Kane, or if they can keep Kane, maybe Conte stays. But I mean, it's kind of going in the other direction. We see players coming out like with Charleston having these interviews about he's unhappy with the manager and not happy with his playing time. And usually when that starts, the manager is probably going to go. And then you have Mauricio Pochettino, who's he's just like an ex-girlfriend, an ex-boyfriend, just waiting. Hey, I'm here, by the way. In case something happens, I'll come in and take the job.
Looking pretty good right now.
Right? So I think the fans, are split on Poch and are definitely split on Antonio Conte. Will he stay at the end of the season? I can't give an answer for that. But I do believe that he still has the capability of putting this team in a good position, even if he leaves at the end of the season. I think they can finish top 4.
Mikey, there's another man over there at Tottenham that you've had your eye on as a Man United fan. That we're also wondering if they're going to stick around this season, and Harry Kane. You know, the way Tottenham have played this season, again, especially if Conte goes too, is it getting more likely that we will see Harry Kane moving, and especially to a place like Manchester United?
You know, under normal circumstances, I would say yeah. But this is still Harry Kane, a guy who came out, how long ago? It was like maybe 2 months ago, and he said that he wants to stay at Tottenham next season. Whether or not you really believe him or if that's just wordplay, I mean, it's up to people to decide, but I do believe that Tottenham is leaning towards keeping Harry Kane. Harry Kane would be content, at least to some regard, to stay with Tottenham. As Albert pointed out just now, they're still in a top 4 position right now. As crazy as their season has been, as disastrous as it's been, they're 4 points clear of Newcastle. I know they've played 2 more games, but still, you have that breathing space at least. And now you're going up against a team like Southampton, and you can pick. I mean, they should pick up 3 points. We'll get to more on that later. You have to wonder if Tottenham finish top 4, then does Harry Kane inevitably stay? I think he does. I think that'll for sure seal it. If they don't, I even think there's a chance that he could stay.
But it's also the price tag, right? The rumor is that Daniel Levy's going to slap an astronomical price tag on Harry Kane, and that can drive away certain suitors, right? Manchester United are in the market for a striker. It's Harry Kane right now, from what I think, it's Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen from Napoli. It's which do they prefer, which player can they get. I don't think money's really going to be an issue for them. It's just, it's a strange situation to be in, I think, for Harry Kane. I think he wants to stay there, wants to finish career there. He always talks so highly about Tottenham. He wants to break even more records in the Premier League. So if he stays at Tottenham, he can do that. If he goes to United, he can still do that. He's just not in the Tottenham shirt. Plus get trophies, right? I mean, the hope is Spurs can eventually win a trophy. And who knows, maybe this Pochettino thing to Spurs is one of the reasons why he'll stay. He loves Poch. And Poch is one of the players that really helped him in his career. So I mean, a lot can change, I would say, in the next couple of months. I'm not going to rule out anything, but I will say it's crazy to say, but I actually believe that Spurs have a legitimate shot of finishing in the top 4.
Well, especially because we know that they are no longer competing in anything else. We see this with teams sometimes. Is that, okay, everything now has to go into this one job. Like we were talking earlier this week with Liverpool getting knocked out as well in the UCL. They have to go for a European finish. So does that give you more confidence as a Spurs fan, knowing that, okay, all eyes are on the one target now?
Yeah, for Spurs, that's exactly what you want. It seems that they can't deal with playing in multiple competitions. There's no way you go away to Sheffield United and Harry Kane doesn't start and you lose that game in the FA Cup. There's no way that in the second leg against AC Milan, they don't put in an effort and a proper performance to try and get through to the next stage, right? I don't know if that has to do with playing in multiple competitions or it's a drive issue. You know what I mean? I don't know, but having one focus on what you need to do and finish top 4, I think is good for Spurs. We saw that at the end of last season. All they had to play for was top 4, and they did it extremely well. They beat Arsenal to it.
Yeah. Mikey, Southampton, bottom of the table. Not much to say about the football they play. It's been poor. But not too long ago did they hold Manchester United to a 0-0 draw. It's one of those weird things. And they also got points against Leicester. I don't know, that's not really saying too much, but
it's a lot for them.
They're turning a corner.
For them. Yeah, it does seem like that. They brought in Ruben Soles as their 3rd manager this season. So you think about all the sackings that have happened in the Premier League. Southampton sacked their manager twice this year, but the Spaniard has them, as Albert said, like potentially turning a corner here and potentially rounding into form, making a late season push. Now they're playing at St. Mary's this weekend, and that's, usually that's good news. But for Southampton, it hasn't been so far this year. I think just 2 wins at St. Mary's. So you have to wonder, can they get the job done against a hungry Spurs team that's going to be vying for a top 4 position? I guess what's working out in their favor is Spurs away form. Last 4 matches, Spurs away from home, Spurs have lost each of those games. One of them was at the San Siro. So, okay, we get it. Like, San Siro is an incredibly tough place to play. But then they're losing away to Sheffield United, as Albert said. They're losing away to Wolves. They're losing away to Leicester. All teams that are kind of like Southampton here. So in a way, Southampton has some hope here. And yeah, the hope is that they can find a way to, I think they'll be happy with any sort of point here in this fixture.
And it's been a tricky fixture for Spurs in recent years going to St. Mary's. Just 1 win in the last 5 trips, right? So it's going to be tough for Spurs. These are these bogey games. But I mean, those matches you mentioned with Sheffield and Leicester and AC Milan, right? Or AC Milan, excuse me, Wolves.
Yeah.
All of those matches are leading into bigger matches for Spurs in different cup competitions. Now they don't have to think about that. So it could be a weight off their shoulders in a way.
Yeah. We got to jump to the next match, but Mikey, really quick, you have a bet for this match.
No, I'm in it. Southampton double chance. Southampton either win or draw this game. I don't trust Spurs. I don't.
No Lloris, no Bentancur, no Basuma, no Sessegnon. I don't hate it. All right, let's talk about Aston Villa and Bournemouth. No Watkins called up here to England. A little bit of a sore spot there. We'll get into that in just a moment. But Aston Villa, 11th, Bournemouth in 18th. $1 million question, is Bournemouth likely to be in the Prem next season? We'll get into that in just a moment, guys. But Unai Emery came out and spoke about Watkins not getting called up to the English side. And here's what he had to say about that.
Good afternoon. I think he deserves it. But of course, they are another very good players. And he has to take it, trying to keep going and improving and working hard like he is doing during the time I am here.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate for Ollie Watkins. Mikey, do you think that it was a fair call by Southgate?
I mean, that's what we just talked about, right? Ivan Toney or Ollie Watkins. That's pretty much what it would have came down to. And Ivan Toney has I mean, he's a better player. Let's not sugarcoat it. Ivan Toney's a way better player. Has had a way better season. It's just whether or not the betting controversy would have displaced Ivan Toney. But no, Southgate made his decision. England, it's so tough, that position, I think, for England, because as Albert said, you're playing behind Harry Kane. Harry Kane will be England's number 9. So to get a call up into that team, you're displacing someone else within that roster, probably at a different position. And there's so much depth there at England at various positions throughout. So yeah, it's a tough break. Ollie Watkins potentially still has a bright future, but yeah.
Albert, really quick, do you want to answer that billion-dollar question and whether Bournemouth will be in the Prem or not next year?
No, I don't think so. Look at the teams ahead of them: West Ham, Leicester, Everton, Forest, Wolves, Palace, all in that relegation scrap. All those teams are better than Bournemouth. I had Bournemouth going down for the beginning of the season. I just don't think they can leapfrog those teams.
Yeah, no kidding. This match was interesting. I have a bet for this one. I wasn't sure where to go with this. I'm going both teams to score here at minus 115. Bournemouth have scored in their last 5 games, guys. And even though I think Villa should win this game, they got goals against Arsenal, City, and Liverpool. In fact, they beat Liverpool. Let's not forget that. So I feel like I had to give them a bit of love. And I thought, my bets have been so bad lately. I'm staying away from the winner here. Guys, up next, we are jumping into Wolves and Leeds. We'll be right back. Over to Molineux Stadium, where Wolves will welcome Leeds. Wolves in 13th place, Leeds near the bottom of the table in 19th. And the billion-dollar question, is Leeds headed to the championship? I'm directing this right to you, Mike Singh.
Well, how many teams can we ask this question for? How many teams is this going to be?
This
The
They're all
whole-
going down.
for?
This whole show is about who's going down because, like we mentioned earlier at the top there's so many teams basically trying to stay out of
Yeah.
relegation right now.
You know what's actually funny about this set of fixtures in the Premier League this week? These are the exact same fixtures as the opening day. So they've come around and whatever the system has calculated and schedule makers has done, it's just turned out that a lot of these matchups are the same. So are they going down? You know, I want to say they've turned a corner. Like we've said that about a couple teams so far, but the way that they showed against Brighton and what Gracia, the R before the A, is what you're saying? Gracia. So what he did is, you know, you're playing at Ellen Road and you're expected there to go play a really exciting, high pressing style of play. He didn't do that against Brighton last week. He played his more reserved, cautious, pragmatic approach, and it worked out for Leeds. So he's willing to try stuff that hasn't worked so far this year for Leeds. And I think under him, they've actually managed to play a lot better football than they were playing under Jesse Marsch. Now, will the results... Marsch, they were playing decent football, but they just wouldn't find the back of the net and getting the results. But with Gracia now, they're getting the results that come with the good football too. So I do believe they're going to stick up. I do.
No Tyler Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Thigh
loss.
injury.
Massive loss.
Huge.
And one of the worst teams away from home, Albert. Now they're traveling here. Does that also make you nervous about whether or not they have a chance in this match?
Yeah, I'm with Wolves on this one. 1 win in the last 13 league games. Forget about away, but 1 win in the last. That's huge. And you know, go back to the relegation thing. If you look at their fixture list going to the end of the season, they still have to play Arsenal, Liverpool, Fulham, City, Newcastle, Spurs. And if you're looking at those fixtures, you would expect Leeds to get 0 from the majority of them. And maybe Fulham, they can get a point. You never know. You never know with the odd fixture in the Premier League. But based on the way that they're playing, I don't trust them at all. And it's just another team that may be too good to go down. But they're in a position right now where they can't afford to drop points. And this is one of those matches where they probably should win.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening.
No, I don't either. I mean, Wolves haven't been great either as of
No.
late. 1 win in 5 matches.
They're slowly starting to turn it around.
Slowly. Players coming back like Sarabia, Diego Costa. I mean, we'll see if they can bring anything.
Listen to this one. The last time a striker scored for Wolves was 37 games ago. That is insane. 37 games. You have Raul Jimenez, Diego Costa. He's obviously out, but that's crazy.
No, it's
The
insane.
scoring for Wolves is the problem.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've been telling Mikey this. I do think Leeds are going down. I just don't think they're in a good position.
It's so
And they-
unfortunate, man. Remember when they first came into the league? They were so exciting
Sure.
Yeah.
under Marcelo Bielsa.
No, they're a massive club, but it's just they are just not doing good enough, I think.
No.
You have a bet for this game.
Yeah,
What are you
this is
taking?
a bit of an odd one. I'm going to go draw halftime. Wolves, 14 draws in the first half. Leeds, the most, 15 draws.
There you go.
Wolves tend to keep it close in the first half, and I think Leeds won't want to concede early as well, and Wolves can't score, so let's go with the draw.
Finding the creative value in that one. Up next, we're headed to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea in 10th take on 15th place Everton. The billion-dollar question once again about relegation. Can Sean Dyche save Everton from relegation? You are probably the most Sean Dyche fan I've ever met.
I'm the head of the Sean Dyche fan club.
Yeah, no kidding. Is he going to be able to do enough with this side?
I want to say yes. I mean, they really need to turn Goodison Park into a fortress. But once again, similar to Leeds, look at their fixtures, right? They have Chelsea, Tottenham, United. They have Newcastle, Manchester City towards the end of the season. Those are difficult fixtures. But half of them are at Goodison Park. And I think if they can pick up points, even if they can win half of those games, they have a serious shot of staying in the Premier League. What's the number you need to get at? 36 to 40 points. It's a big stretch for an Everton side who can't score goals, but I think the Goodison Park will be a factor for them keeping them up.
They have to, right? They're so bad away from home.
Yeah.
Goodison has to be that place for them, but
that goes for all these teams. Yeah,
for sure.
Let's jump over to Chelsea really quickly, guys. It seems like Potterball is starting to click for the Blues here. They beat Dortmund in the UCL, crushed Leicester over the weekend, but big news here is that they drew Real Madrid in the Champions League. Likely the team that Potter wanted the least, and here's what he had to say about drawing Madrid.
Well, I said we would try to blink win the Champions League, and that's the same for, I'm pretty sure, for the other 7 clubs as well. And all the other clubs will say that you could lose in the quarter-final because that's the nature of the Champions League. We'll focus on Real Madrid when we get there, but at the moment it's Everton.
Listen, he stayed positive. Kudos to him. But Albert, you don't want to draw Real Madrid in the Champions League.
Nobody does.
That's what I
You see
mean.
what they just did to Liverpool? You can never count those guys out. To me, I still think they're one of the favorites to win this whole thing. But based on the way Chelsea's is turned around their form, you can see Potter's got his smile back, you know? We didn't see that for a little while. He looked really under stress, but he's starting to figure out his 11. The team's starting to perform the way he wants the team to perform. In this fixture, as much as I want Sean Dyche to do well at Everton, I think going to Stamford Bridge is just too much, because what's going to happen? Everton are going to show up. They're going to sit back. They're going to soak up pressure. And what this Potter team is doing is they're creating so many chances. And if you're going to let them create those chances, they're going to find the back of the net eventually.
Eventually is the key point, because they don't really have that one guy that can continuously put the ball in the back of the net. But you're right. I do think Chelsea is starting to turn the corner. And the one reservation I have is that the Premier League season doesn't matter anymore for Chelsea, right? They're not going to make a push here and get into the top 4. They're too far out of it. So right now they're just refining their form using Premier League matches essentially. And I think they're going to shift all their focus to the Champions League. So at one point that could make them vulnerable. But I guess the flip side to that is they have a game to play for, so they want to get into good form leading up to that match. So yeah, there's a lot on the line here for Everton specifically, and maybe they find a way to squeeze out a result, but I'm not too confident.
I don't see it.
All right, Mikey, you have a bet for this match.
Yeah,
Everton
so
and Chelsea.
One of the easiest bets I think I've come up with really quickly, it's Chelsea to win and under 2.5 goals at plus 201 right now. Obviously Everton, same thing. Same problem as Chelsea. They don't have that number 9 that's going to consistently put the ball in the back of the net. And I just spoke about Chelsea with that. So I like Chelsea here and the under 2.5.
That bet was money when Tuchel was in charge. It hit
yeah.
all the time. It was great. They're under
Speaking of
3.5.
Tuchel, what a guy. Eh? It wasn't that long ago.
I know.
He was managing Chelsea. First picture of the season, he led Chelsea to a 1-0 victory over Everton thanks to his Jorginho penalty. None of those guys.
I love that.
What is like a parallel universe at this point?
The first half of the season, pre-World Cup, for any season, it's like it never
feels
happened.
like-
No, a very different time. Let's jump into what I think now might be the biggest match of the weekend here in the Prem because of the last 24 hours. Arsenal taking on Crystal Palace. First place Gunners get knocked out of the Europa League on Thursday to Sporting Lisboa in penalties. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, has sacked Patrick Vieira in the early morning on Friday. Well, I guess the question becomes, guys, who will replace Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace?
Yeah, the rumor right now is Roy Hodgson. That's what's kind of going around. I think that would be a short-term replacement. He's the type of guy who can come in and try and keep them safe in the Premier League. I think he can do, because you look at Crystal Palace, they have a very good team. I mean, up front, attacking-wise, you have Olise, Eze, and Wilfred Zaha. I call those guys, that's a ballers club. When those guys are on form, it's a really exciting and potent attack. Defensively, you got Mark Gurhey and Yogi Anderson beside him. That's two very good center backs. I just think under Vieira, it kind of went stale, and that's why they got rid of him. Like, listen, I mean, 27 points. It's not good enough for a team like Crystal Palace, but with how many fixtures are left remaining, can they get to 36 or 40 points? I believe that they can. It's going to be difficult, but listen, the next 6 out of 7 games are against teams below them. Very winnable matches. So you bring in a guy, Roy Hodgson, who's familiar with the club, the players like him. I think they can get it done and stay up.
Mikey, what do you think?
Well, for Crystal Palace, I mean, it came down to the fact that they were winless in 12 straight matches and have scored, 4 goals over that span. So that's, like you said, not good enough.
Sorry to interrupt you, but were we not talking earlier this week or last week about how Patrick Vieira was kind of flying under the radar of not doing a good job, but there were so many other teams that were doing worse, and now I feel like it's finally bubbled up.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting. The timing of his sacking is very peculiar. Like, you're going to go up against your former club and they sack him, the day before, 2 days before that he's going to go up against his former club. Like, that's really interesting. And you're also not setting up whoever your next manager is for success if they come in, before this match, right? So it's probably not going to be that. So I do wonder whether or not Crystal Palace can get that push you get from sacking a manager. Maybe that's the hope. You also have the international break coming up. But just quickly, Crystal Palace have the easiest schedule the rest of the way in the Premier League. So maybe that's a factor as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the caretaker, maybe the caretaker bump, right?
Exactly.
I mean, but yeah, it is a weird timing, because you would think maybe they should have done it after the last match or after this one, heading into international break.
Yeah.
But what that tells me is that they have no one in line at all. This was just a decision that was made like this. And who knows, maybe Palace get that bump and somehow shock Arsenal, which Man City would be very happy about.
Do you know what I was looking into doing this bet this morning, because so much had changed in the last, couple hours. I was thinking, could Crystal Palace really give Arsenal the business here? But let's remember, it's at Emirates. Arteta is not going to be happy with what just happened in the Europa League a few days back now. And this is the last thing they have. It's the Prem. All eyes on the Prem. So I went with Arsenal to win, but both teams to score here, because not new manager bounce, but no manager bounce.
Yeah, no manager bounce.
And, maybe Arsenal still might be a little rocky from that, getting knocked out in penalties too. You got to be shaky after that.
Well, potentially no William Saliba and no Tomiyasu. Huge.
Yeah, no, I think this one is going to be very exciting. Hopefully some really class football, but I still think the Gunners will manage to get the W. All right, guys. Up next, jumping from the Prem to the FA Cup. Yes, several teams are not participating in the Prem because of the FA Cup, and we have you guys covered for that coming up next. Now to the Etihad, where Manchester City will be facing Burnley in the FA Cup. And the $1 million question here is, can Manchester City win the treble? Guys, this happens to be a much more interesting match than I think a lot of people would assume, because Pep Guardiola is going to be taking on his former captain that he coached, Vincent Kompany, who's been doing absolutely fantastic with Burnley. They spoke to Guardiola earlier in the day, and this is what he had to say about meeting up with Kompany on the pitch.
It was an exceptional captain, a top human being, and I think I'm really pleased. So, in the other side, I'm a little bit concerned, because the fact when you start to play a game with in the touchline for your opponent is a player that you realize how old you are becoming. So, and that is a little bit frustrating. But it's nice to see him today. But of course, he want to win. We want to win, and we'll take it seriously.
Pep Guardiola aging all of us in that clip there, thinking about when Vincent Kompany used to be the captain of City. Feels like just yesterday. But Albert, this matchup is very interesting because of that connection, but also because Vincent Kompany has been doing great things with Burnley, top of the championship, as well as unbeaten in 18 matches altogether. The last time they lost was to Manchester United in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, 13 points clear in the championship, which is very good. This is, if you haven't watched Burnley play, this isn't your same old Burnley. This isn't Sean Dyche's Burnley that sit back and get hammered. They play like this. I don't know. It's like champagne attacking football. I don't know if they're going to set up that way against Manchester City, but I assume it's not going to be far from how they've been playing. Nathan Tella for them, 15 goals this season. He's been spectacular. They still have Ashley Barnes, who's always a threat. I'm not sure how this game is going to play out. I was kind of trying to figure out how Pep is going to set up his team, but going into the international break, you'd assume he's probably going to start a strong 11, right? Because there's no Premier League game coming up right after it, which doesn't bode well for Burnley.
Yeah, exactly. And also the history doesn't bode well for Burnley. Burnley's last 10 matches against Man City, they haven't won and have been outscored 34-1.
Yeah, it's been bad. Like a lot of 5-0s, right?
Over that span. Like that's tough for Vincent Kompany to overcome. But you're right. He has this Burnley team clicking. I mean, you mentioned the goal scoring, 74 goals scored so far in this championship season. That's far and away more than any other club. He's revitalized them, and him and his manager, like, it's so interesting to see former players turn into managers. Some of them work out, some of them don't. Vincent Kompany, you can flat out say, has worked out so far. And we spoke about Crystal Palace last block. He's a name out there that people are floating around as potentially a guy who can move on up.
Well, if we're talking about goal scorers, gentlemen, there has to be one person that comes to name, in Erling Haaland, scoring 5 goals earlier this week against RB Leipzig when City absolutely smashed them. Surely Vincent Kompany has to be thinking about this man in particular going into this match.
How do you stop him at this point? How do you find a way to stop him? I mean, that's what Albert just said. They're probably going to play close to, if not their strongest starting 11 for this match. And we can ignore sort of the comments that Pep Guardiola says about whether or not he actually really cares about these cup competitions still. I think they're going to come out and they're going to show up like they do care about these competitions. That means starting Erling Haaland up top on the back of what was one of the most impressive Champions League performances we've ever seen.
Yeah, and listen, if it's not Erling Haaland you have to worry about, it's Kevin De Bruyne who's finding his form once again. And there's no way to stop Erling Haaland. I mean, it's hard to know how Burnley's going to set up here. If they do sit back, I've noticed that sometimes Haaland and City do tend to struggle to break teams down. Like usually it's the opposite, but with Haaland, he needs a bit more space is what I found. But listen, I have him scoring a hat-trick in this game.
Yeah, what a crazy bet.
Listen, a hat-trick at 7-1. He has
it.
45 goals, 5 goals in 63 minutes. And if you go through his stats this season or his game log, his fixtures, he goes through like these, he scores in bunches. And then he won't score for like maybe 2 games, maybe 3 games. He'll score in bunches again. I think he's just finding that form once again, and he's in one of those patches. Yeah, and I like Erling Haaland to score. It's crazy, but listen, 7-1 for a guy who can score like this, why not?
No, I think you're right. And also, like you mentioned, when Kevin De Bruyne is in form, Erling Haaland is in form.
Yeah, Pep kind of called out his squad a little bit, and they've responded.
I like that. Haaland is 1 goal away from 40 too, so that 40 goal mark maybe he
a nice round 40, eh?
Insane.
A nice round 40 in the middle of March.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. All right, up next, we have Sheffield United versus Blackburn Rovers. Mikey's been looking forward to this one a ton. The billion-dollar question here is Dembele going to Sheffield? I don't know if you guys saw earlier in the week. I'm just having a bit of fun here. Dembele was at the Sheffield-Sunderland match because he's actually friends with Sunderland chair Lewis Dreyfus, and yeah, no, I was just having a bit of fun because the internet really exploded here and was like, oh my God, he's leaving Barcelona. As if they could afford it. Oh, I wish. I can't. Yeah. I'm not, I don't have
some type of way about Dembele.
But he's always injured. He's the most consistent player at being inconsistent. It's ridiculous.
Where would he, if he stayed healthy throughout his entire career?
Oh, I think he'd be a fantastic footballer. His skill is there. His pace is there. His shot is there. He's fantastic when he's on.
He doesn't know what foot he is either.
He doesn't. What foot?
Have you heard that interview before?
No.
He did an interview, was at Dortmund. They're like, what foot? He's like, I don't know.
Whichever one works.
You bang both left and right.
That's a coach's dream, though.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
But that's such an epitome of our block right here of these 2 matches because we spent it talking about Ousmane Dembele.
All right. Well, quickly.
Spurs fans will say this should be Tottenham here playing Blackburn.
Yeah, really well, listen, Sheffield have a really good opportunity here to kind of win a massive trophy, second in the championship, but they knocked out a team like Spurs.
Yeah.
And now they're playing Blackburn, which is, a smaller side, a poor side, in no disrespect. But if you're going to play a team like Spurs and then play Blackburn, you're happy with this.
For sure. It's not they're not the threat that Spurs are. But that being said, I mean, these two teams are right neck and neck in the championship. And that's why I think this fixture is actually being really, really interesting. Blackburn actually beat Sheffield United 1-0 not that long ago. But when Sheffield United hosted Blackburn early in the season, they smoked them 3-0. So, you kind of like Sheffield's chances from that perspective. They're going to be at home. They're going to be hosting a team that's not like Spurs. So maybe they'll have that extra bit of confidence. You just have to wonder that, both of these teams are so close to promotion, especially Sheffield right now, who's in second in the championship right below Burnley. You have to wonder how much they're going to throw at this competition when your focus is going to be on, earning promotion, because that's obviously the bigger prize. But then on the other hand, there's Wembley at stake. So you wonder how much both of these teams are really going to throw at this.
Yeah, I think Sheffield are in a better spot. If you look at Blackburn, I mean, up to 8 injuries going into this, missing tons of starters. I mean, if you want to make some changes in this fixture, Sheffield can do so. Blackburn, they're not afforded that same ability. I like Sheffield here at home. Forget it.
Yeah.
United.
And Mikey, you like Sheffield here
The
as well.
Blades.
Your bet.
Yeah, that's my bet.
Sheffield.
Sheffield United at
Straight
home.
up?
That's it. Minus 145. All right, let's hop over to Falmer Stadium. Brighton taking on Grimsby Town. $1 billion question. Does Brighton favor a top 4 Prem finish or the FA Cup trophy? Listen, Brighton have been such a fun side to watch this season. They're still in the run for finishing top 4 in the Prem. No, there's still a chance, but they're also here in the FA Cup and against a team that are, way further down than they are. What do you think? Is this trophy more important than putting all their marbles in on the Premier League?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to finish in the top 4. I think they probably have the ability to. I just don't think so with Liverpool, Newcastle, and Spurs ahead of them. Which one would they pick? I want to say an FA Cup because I think they'll still finish in the European position. It may not be the Champions League, but you got Europa League, you got the Conference League. That's huge for a Brighton team that wasn't expecting to be in this position.
For sure.
Right? So if you can win an FA Cup or even get to a final and finish in a European spot, that is a hell of a season. So top 4 out of the question. FA Cup definitely within striking distance.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you get out of winning a cup? You get the trophy, you get the silverware.
Mikey,
but
Well, they got the
important.
trophy. Albert wouldn't know about it being a Spurs fan.
that is true.
Why? Why?
That's
Why?
why he always says trophy. But you have to.
FA Cup is a major
It's a
title
major
in England.
trophy.
Major.
It's a major trophy, 100%. But you as a Spurs fan always
This
say
has
trophy.
nothing to do with me as a Spurs fan.
That's more
We're talking
valuable.
about Brighton.
No, but you think about what's to come if you crack the Champions League. You get way more investment from your ownership. You get way more prize money. It's a long-term play. Whereas if you win a cup, who knows what happens to you next
But they get
season.
that bump in Europa League or the Conference League. Yes, not as
Not
much
as
as the
much. No, we're
Champions
close.
League.
No, we're close.
But listen, man, look at the teams ahead of Brighton. You got to hope for those
I think that's the thing as well.
of those
The
teams
fight's
to
tough.
fall.
Yeah.
Right? I think you
The
have to
fight for
understand the
Brighton here
position
is
that you're
tough.
in, the teams that you're
For
going
sure.
up against. Listen, an FA Cup is a massive achievement for Brighton.
But
Don't
it's
dismiss it.
the same thing for like in Spain, the Copa del Rey. It's the same in Italy, the Copa
it's very
Italia.
important.
Like these cups are massive,
And it's-
especially for those middle kind of level teams.
For sure. I'm
not
not saying
easy to
it's
win
not
either.
massive, but if you're putting it one or the other, I think you choose Champions League spot 10 times.
I would say if they were like 3 points or maybe a point out of the 4th, then you're going to
realistic.
start weighing out your
Well,
options.
yeah.
But
We can talk about this in just a moment when we head over to Manchester United. I'll just tell you what my bet is for this match really quick. Alexis McAllister to score anytime at plus 110. He's been hot lately. He's a penalty taker. I like those odds, but we'll now jump into the final FA Cup match of the weekend. An all Premier League match, Manchester United versus Fulham at Old Trafford. Oh, Mikey, this one's for you. Is Man U on track to clinch the Mickey Mouse double? That's also for James because
The
you know
Mickey
he'd
Mouse
love
double,
it.
wow.
So we could see them win the Europa and the FA.
I was not expecting that.
Can we correct this?
Yes.
It's the treble. Let's not forget. Carabao Cup champions, right?
They are still in the run here. They are. No. I'm just, I had a bit of fun this week coming up with the show, and I just
hilarious.
had to
Absolutely
get my
hilarious.
drowning.
We're just talking about how the FA Cup's just massive tournament, and all of a sudden it's a Mickey Mouse double.
No.
Oh my god!
Yeah, because you could win the Prem and the UCL, but you could also win the FA Cup and the Europa.
If
Almost as good.
If Barca was in this would be a completely different conversation.
Good thing we
But-
are talking about different countries.
No, exactly. But they're the second best team remaining in this competition, right? But really great pathway forward, but also Europa League. They're the best team remaining in Europa League. Like they're a pass forward where yes, they are on track to absolutely clinch the treble, right? And they're in a tough spot. No Casemiro this weekend. And you have Paulinho back for Fulham. That's a massive addition for that side. It's not going to be easy whatsoever.
Garnacho also out.
Yeah, it's
Anthony picking up some sort of illness. He's doubtful. I think it's going to be decided on the day. But yeah, lots of misses. Something I wanted to ask you as well is the fact that they played Betis on Thursday in the Europa League. It's a quick turnaround. There's a lot going on for this team. Is fatigue going to play a role in this match?
It definitely can. I just think being at Old Trafford, they're going to be too strong for Fulham. If this was a Fulham of old that would be in a relegation battle at the moment, then I would really be leaning toward. I'm still leaning towards Manchester United, but even more so because you wouldn't expect Fulham to put out a strong 11 in an FA Cup match. But because Fulham are in a strong position, there could be some changes to the side that we wouldn't expect. Paulinho is actually a huge addition back into the lineup. But I can't imagine at this moment, based on the form of Manchester United, that any team is, unless you're Manchester City and one of the top teams in the world, you're not going to Old Trafford and picking up all 3 points. It's not happening.
Yeah. Ten Hag went out and said that Man U has to have a winning mentality. And Mikey, I think that you were kind of referencing that, in that anything they compete in, they have to be winning it because they are that big club, Manchester United, and they need to get back to those winning ways.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Arsenal and the way that they've gone out in the Europa League and how they've been in that competition for 7 straight years, and yet they've not won the trophy. Like, it means something to win these types of trophies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're right. This could have like an effect on the club moving forward if they do get everything right. Every competition essentially that they're in this year, they win. That's huge. That's a massive season.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, Albert, you have Marcus Rashford to score anytime here.
It's a banker, man. 19 goals since the World Cup, 30 goals all season. He's going to score.
All right, well, that's the FA Cup wrapped up for you. We'll be right back just to give you a little sprinkle of El Clasico, which is also this weekend. Welcome back into Soccer Today. As we wrap up, we have to shed some light on La Liga because El Clasico is this weekend. Mikey, we saw Barcelona get the better of Real Madrid in the first leg of the Copa del Rey a couple weeks back and the Supercopa a few months ago now. But Real Madrid still competing in La Liga. I know they're 9 points behind, still in the Champions League. In my opinion, I think playing better football. Barcelona are playing this very defensive football, but it's working. It's pragmatic. Who is under more pressure going into this match?
It has to be probably Real Madrid. They got a gap to make up in La Liga if they want to make this anything remotely close, right? So it has to be Real Madrid on that point. And, they're still in the Champions League. They got a really big Champions League matchup coming up, but Barcelona, Real Madrid, that still means something, right? And the fact that Real Madrid haven't got the victory over Barcelona, I'm sure the fans, of course, are not going to be happy about it. But I'm sure people inside that club are not going to be happy about it. So I think the pressure's on Real Madrid to come up with a big performance.
Yeah, listen, for Barcelona, you win this game, I think it's done.
La Liga
They have La
sealed.
Liga, right? So, I mean, the pressure is definitely on Real Madrid. One eye, maybe both eyes on the Champions League, but regardless, it's one of those matches where you just throw form out the window. It's so cliche with derbies, but especially this one. But I think for Barcelona, they want to win this one. Absolutely, even more so because I think if they win it, it's done. La Liga's theirs.
Well, especially if Barcelona can then go and say, if they win the second leg of the Copa del Rey, Barca fans can go around saying, we beat Real Madrid 3 times in 1 month.
But then what if Real win the Champions League and back-to-back?
It's tricky. I have no clue. No Pedri confirmed he will be out. Dembele's out. Benzema missing training a couple days prior. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of major stars missing here, and I think it's a pick 'em.
Yeah, I think so too. But listen, Vinicius has been fantastic this season. Ancelotti called him the best player in the world at the moment. You watched a ton of La Liga and you see this guy a lot. Would you agree that he's up there with some of the best? Would you put him in the category of Mbappe, Haaland, those types of players?
In form right now, I think so. He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, he put Trent Alexander in his pocket in the Champions
He's
League.
so
That's
good.
it.
He's
He's
Like,
done that a few times.
I
Poor
know.
Trent.
Yeah, no. So I think it's it's a big concern for Barcelona. But then again, Barcelona this year, and it's weird to say, have defensively been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Least amount of goals conceded. They look incredible. Araujo is going to be back there. It's going to be a really exciting match, I hope. But we will see La Liga and El Clasico kicking off on Sunday. But that is it for us today. And Soccer Today, we will be back next week, same time, same place.